to Casually Dressed and Deep in Conversation with me, Greg Chalmers. CDDC is sponsored by Pizza Daddy, Lanarkshire's #1 American-style pizza parlour. To stay up to date on new flavours and promotions, then get connected on the socials. The Instagram handle is @RealPizzaDaddy and the website is www.thepizzadaddy.co.uk. To see what we're getting up to here at Casually Dressed, then you can find us on Instagram with the handle @CDDC Podcast, and on Twitter it is @PodcastCDDC. Also, as you're watching this on YouTube, then please hit those like and subscribe buttons. And with me today as my co-host, as usual, all the way from Northern Ireland, is my best friend and my fatter counterpart. It's Christopher Shields.
Hello. Not happy with that, but hello.
Our guest this evening is the founder of Blaksmith Creatives, Beverley Jane Smith. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. Christopher, how are you this evening?
Yeah, not too bad. Can't complain too much.
Apart from
guys, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. I was so excited once I saw the message that you would like to have me on for a for real podcast. So thank you so much. It's a brilliant opportunity.
Not a problem at all. Not a problem. You, it was Christopher that kind of put you onto my radar, and you're a very interesting young woman.
Oh, okay. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, and so we just thought it'd be good to have somebody on who is more interesting than us. So, so just to start things off, for anyone who doesn't know, who is Beverley Jane Smith?
That is the question.
That is the question.
Well, okay. As I did send over to you guys, I do have a big, massive spiel planned out, but I won't copy it all, word for word. But so I studied music business. That is my main passion. But along with that, I do love to sing. I love to write songs as well. But other than that, other than the music industry, I do like to be involved within the creative industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like to think of myself as an upcoming, future entrepreneur, as well as a creative. But at first, I did want to focus it on mainly just music. But then my older sister Maggie, she's actually a model, and she's been modelling for well over 5-6 years now. So I've always grew up within the creative industries as a whole, and I was involved in sort of catwalks and fashion shows from the age of maybe I think around 13. So it has always attracted me that.
Mm-hmm.
So and after studying, I realised that it is quite a hard category to try and be successful in. The music industry as a whole, if you're going out there as just a solo artist, you do need to, especially nowadays, you do need to have a sort of a bigger background plan, if that makes any sense. So I realised if I'm interested in everything else, and why only, narrow it down to just music. So then the creative industry, I've always loved art. I love painting, I love drawing. That's always been an interest that I've had. And as I said in my previous blogs, I studied advanced higher in school. And funnily enough, when it came to my exams, I actually submitted 3 applications to study art because I was doing an advanced higher. So I thought, that makes so much sense. And I was rejected for all of them. So that kind of knocked me down a wee bit, because I thought if I'm doing advanced higher, that's what I'm meant to do. And then I got knocked back. So I was kind of left really, really puzzled. And then I found the music business course. So studying music business throughout college and then throughout university, you do start to see that when you're in the music industry, it's not only artists and other musicians you're collaborating with, it's a massive, massive pool. So it's good to have, contacts and networks within all of those sectors. And then, of course, my blog obviously explains how Blaksmith was created. It started off as just an idea, then mumbled into an artist management, a record label, signing a hypothetical artist. And it wasn't until after I graduated that I realised I did want to expand it more and more. So that's when the blog came into play. And I thought, just now, because I do consider myself as a singer, as a vocalist, but my confidence with performing, publicly, just now I know for a fact I'm not ready, especially if I'm confident in what I know I can do. I know I'm not at that point where I can broadcast it just yet. I wouldn't feel comfortable just yet, but I'm working on it, and we'll see how that journey goes. But in terms of sort of music as a whole, I do want to be an artist, but I don't want to be just considered as a music, as a singer, as just that. The business industry has always interested me, but I never had the chance to study sort of higher or anything in school. So I thought that was going to be a dead end for myself. And then music business came into play. So it gets your mind going. And when you're a creative as well, you start thinking of things, in different ways. You start piecing it together as just a creative idea, and you start seeing ways you can pull it together to become a business idea, to develop it as that. So with Blaksmith, that's what I hope to create, is something that it was just a music platform at first, where it was just an idea for myself, and then I thought I want to work with other people, with other artists. So that was a music idea there, and then I thought, why stop there? Why don't we work with photographers, with other creatives, people that sort of studied videography as well for the music video side, and then from then on build a network of music producers, of songwriters, of other independent artists. So they might not have the right connection to really push the music out there, to push the voice out there, or their image, or they might not have social media plays a big part in that. If they might not have the right following, they're not going to get anywhere. So I want to create that where everybody, as a collective, as a creative, has one place to go, where if you have one idea, another artist from another different pool might have something to match that, and that way it can really build from there. So it was a small idea at first, and then really just snowballed from there, and I am really ambitious about it. I've got really high hopes. Who knows if it's going to happen? Who knows if it's going to pan out well? But at least if it does happen, I can say that I tried, and at least I do have a plan of how I want it to pan out, but you never know. It might pan out completely differently than what I've hoped to. But in the end, I hope what I want to happen as the solid Blaksmith brand will actually turn out that way. Fingers crossed. We'll see.
Wow, that's do you know what it kind of reminds me of? I know quite a lot of people who work at SWG3 in Glasgow,
yes,
and they kind of have, obviously you're talking almost like an all-encompassing, almost like if a label, like a music label, had everything. You could basically, it was all in house.
Exactly.
SWG3
a self-sufficient networking tool.
Yeah.
Really, isn't it?
Yes,
and SWG3 have something similar. They've got that creative lounge bit on the second floor. I don't know if you know about this, Chris. So basically, they've got like an artist space. So they've got photographic studios. They've got benches, for people who make things like sculptures and all that stuff. And then again, it's the same sort of idea that if you have all different across the spectrum of creatives, all in the same area, then they can all help each other.
Yeah, you can pull together. And I think it's easier to do it that way rather than, especially as a music artist trying to go to a major label. Like you might get signed, but will you get a big break? You don't know it. Well, you might get a big break, but will that continue on? You might get signed to maybe do a partnership with a clothing line, or maybe endorse some instruments or something like that. But will that continue? So you don't know. So it's good to have a back plan and a main focus, but it is also good to be able to pull into those other areas as well. So and I think with SWG3, I've never heard of that before at all. That's really, I'll need to look into that. That is quite interesting. That's brilliant.
I suppose it's really good as well, because like you say, if you were to say be signed as a singer or signed to a label, I mean, more often than not, these people are essentially just commodities along this conveyor belt. But if you've got somebody as part of Blaksmith, where they're kind of in this networking in this kind of little networking organism where they can bounce ideas off other people, and then kind of allows them to kind of discover different kind of aspects to them as an artist. I mean, and bring in other kind of bits and go, I didn't realise I could do that. I could bring this in, or branch out into other things.
You didn't know you had.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what it kind of reminds me of? So basically, if you remember that Chance the Rapper did everything on his own.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Chance to
if
that
you're
one.
kind of, I know, so if you cut out the suits, as it were, right, and then you could, if you had a
Make your
collective
own
of
suits.
funny,
Sorry.
Funny, Christopher.
Sorry, mate. Apologies.
Sorry, I was making a valid point there
I
and
know,
just
I just cut you
trivialised
off.
it with drivel.
Yeah, apologies.
No, but yeah, so if you take what he did, which was basically just cut out the suits and then was able to be in charge of his own merchandising and all, and the way he was perceived to the public.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I kind of get that vibe from you, that it means then that you're not beholding to someone who is only really seeing you as pound signs. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's actually what we studied a lot of throughout college. We looked at, the one thing that really sticks in my head was the band Ozzy Osbourne was in, Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath.
His management, like the stories that we heard about his management and the things that they'd done, especially for money, when it came to performances, how the bands, they were treated, how their health was considered as well. That really blew my mind, and then that opened up more sort of areas that we looked into. So it was always, artist management has always been an interesting lane to me, as well as record labels as a whole, independent and majors. But we also did look into how, of course, social media and streaming platforms, YouTube, things like this, they are overtaking everything. So where, in the end, where does that leave record labels? These actually platforms that you can get online, but are, they do have an actual solid place to them. Where does that leave them in the end? So when I was studying, actually, I wanted to be an artist manager, Blacksmith. After I'd immigrated unit and I had that idea about a record label, that really intrigued me, so I wanted to start there. And then we started studying if we really will need record labels in the future. So then I was like, oh God, okay, that's kind of out the window. But then again, everyone does still need management. Everyone does still need someone to, sort of guide them in the right direction. So maybe not an artist management in the way that they have full control over you, like you don't have a say in anything, but that way there is going to be that partnership, that's someone there. There's a guardian, if you may, but obviously might still get a cut in the end, but definitely not as much as what they used to take. So I think that's what I find interesting about the sort of music groups that I mentioned.
Yeah.
In that big paragraph I sent over to you, that they, even if I'm not too sure about them if they had a big management behind them, but collectively they could do their own individual unique thing and then come together as a group and then work freely that way. So it would be exciting to be able to do that and then to not have to then go to someone for them to approve if you can release that or not. Yeah. For them to be like, okay, you can do this, but only if you can do this, and only if I get a cut of this, and only if you and so on and so on. That's why I think I was excited once I found that idea that it would be good to create something like that. Of course, it leaves you in terms of profit and everything. It does leave you wondering how much would you actually earn as an individual, or if it's your own company, how much would you earn? Of course, as a startup business, it's going to be difficult. Of course, it is, but 4 or 5 years down the line, how would profit work? Because obviously you're going to be putting money back into the business to fund the artists. If you're going on a big group tour, everyone's going to be putting money in, things like that. So how much do you make back? So all of this, it does still all have a big question mark over it, but I'm certain that there's going to be ways we can look into where everyone's still going to be able to release their music, do what they want with, and have their own creative freedom, and also have a say in where their songs go, who gets a cut, how much gets taken, and really what's happening with their money, with their royalties, with their credits, and with their music, and what they can do later on with the music.
Yeah, so, absolutely. I mean, it goes back to this is something that we've said on previous, quite a few podcasts, is people buy into authenticity. So essentially, it's as long as you are kind of building that brand with the right message, and you'll find kind of, like, without having to force it down people. So obviously you're going to have to do a little bit of self-promotion, go out there and push yourself out there. But after a while, you'll find that it will probably end up just taking its kind of sort of snowball and just kind of gather momentum.
Yeah, it's one tool.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, like you were saying, obviously Black Sabbath, they kind of got screwed out a lot of money. Bay City Rollers is another one. they famously never get any money. And my dad actually worked on a building site with a bass player from Bay City Rollers. My dad was a joiner. He was labouring on a building
That's
site.
amazing.
And he's like, this guy sold like number ones all over the world, like throughout the 70s.
He's working
and
with
and he's
that is brilliant.
labouring on he literally had his boots had holes in them, so he had to have like bin bags. He had like bin bags in his boots so his feet didn't get wet. And my dad's like, you have been on all over the telly. And you sat there with Tesco bags in your...
Do you think you could just go in the Big Brother house?
Still down here.
I know. But that's it. See, nowadays, I'll just go in the Big Brother house. I'll go in the jungle.
That's
you know
how
what I mean?
you get, yeah. That's how you bring
go
it
on a
back
chase
up.
or something.
That's that.
Do you know what's funny? The other one that's I think became more publicly known was what Jerry Heller did to NWA.
Yes.
Yeah, he was taking 20% off the
Yes.
top, but the way they structured it was that it was Ruthless Records that was owned by Eazy-E and Jerry Heller, and then everyone underneath it was just basically an employee of that record label. I think that was the case, and they get ripped off.
Tag-alongs.
And Joe, actually, so I've got a bit of background in the music industry as well. My dad owned a record label, and so my dad was the first ever guy to record Wet 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 and Deacon Blue and all that. And what?
You know, my sister was actually in a music video, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember what song it was for, but that just works very well. That I did not know that your dad was had a record label. That's exciting.
So yeah, I was brought up. So my dad's the premises was on Suckhill Street, and my dad and his business partner Nicky put on New Order and all that, like serious bands.
That's brilliant.
It's crazy. But that's before I mean I'm 32, and that was like before I was born, so it was a different game then, you know. Whereas now, but that back then the artists didn't really have a choice but to go to someone who has got the contacts and the capital to put into them to promote them.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like you were saying, like YouTube and all these artists that you can get out there, yeah, Spotify. You know what I mean? We had Able Faces on the podcast maybe about 2 months ago now. And they basically just work out their attic. But they did this song. They've released 3 songs with Mark Benjamin. Am I right in saying the DJ? But their Spotify is up to like, it's in the millions, and it's just 2 guys in their attic. Do you know what I mean? So it's definitely possible. You know?
Yeah, you can do it without a label, especially if you're smart about it. And nowadays, I think it is actually really quite easy. Like, fair enough, I studied music business and I got my degree, but I think at the same time, someone who would dedicate that same time getting themselves the music business books and dedicating that same 3 years teaching themselves, it's possible. And if you're good, you know, on the computer, which I'm terrible with, you know, it's easy to set up a website, a blog, or music-wise, there's all these softwares where you can make a beat or a rhythm within seconds, within minutes, and honestly, it can snowball, and it can happen from your own bedroom. So I think, but if you can do all that, and you can start from there. But then it's once you actually get to putting it out and releasing it, I think that's where it gets complicated. Because I think even if I were a recording releasing an artist at this moment, I would definitely struggle still with the royalty side, with understanding fully how everything works deep down to the NICOM. And I studied music business, so it just shows you. So obviously it takes practice and it takes time. You're going to get screwed over. It doesn't matter how smart you are. So at some point, it's going to happen. Yeah. But it's just how you take that and how you can move on from that. But definitely, it's easy to make it happen on your own. You don't need like major labels, independent labels, and in that sense, I don't know how well a label with Blaksmith would go, but you know, it would still be good as well to have something there, even if it's a label that doesn't do too well. It's still there if anybody wants to join.
That's it's interesting. So you mentioned your blog. So Chris and I sat the other evening and basically read everything that you have ever written, and it was incredibly interesting.
Thanks.
So it was. Do you know? It's just a different perspective. Do you know what I mean? From and So talk to us about why you first started the blog. Like, what was the catalyst for you to get out what you wanted to say?
To get out there, I think what started first, I think it was the idea of a blog. I've always loved writing, always loved writing. And I knew I didn't have anything to write about myself just yet. But I loved reading about artists, upcoming artists, their story. I think what interested me mainly is the background story to artists like Destiny's Child, Beyonce mainly. But then the Fugees, Lauryn Hill, like their stories, I love going into the night and that. And then Straight Outta Compton came out as well, so that got me quite interested. Of course, it got everyone quite interested, but it does it when it comes to that. Sorry, guys, I've completely went off track. What were we talking about?
The blog.
Yeah,
blog, that's it. So that's... Do you see what I mean? I go on a tangent and then I just forget about what I'm talking. Okay, right. So my blog. So that's how it started. I always loved to write, and I felt in that sense, if I'm reading so much about other artists, and it doesn't matter if they're big celebrities or if they're small local artists, why not just start something up myself? And I knew that I did have to build up that network anyway. You know, you can't only rely on Instagram and Facebook. You do need to have that, like another platform. Of course, they help so much with the promotional side, but it's good to also have another output as well. And so when it came to the blog, my very first article, I think I'd done with Emma Ocher with Fierce Acts. And that was just about, because I had her on when I was studying in university. I'd done a sort of music conference and live music event, and that was from an events management module. And Emma Ocher actually travelled up to Perth to be in that as well, to talk about Fierce Acts. So that was amazing. And then to have her be the first person that I write a blog about, it was great. And of course I didn't have a big following, and so for her to help me out with that was really amazing. So with Fierce Acts is all about boosting confidence and you as a performer, or you as a person, if you want to boost your personal skills or your performance skills or your career in general. So I felt that was interesting, and wanted to, of course, write about her, and then would love to work with her. Hopefully still would love to work with her in the very near future. And then from then on, I think I started to do song reviews. I think there was Scarlett Randall. There was a sort of a jazz band that was Edward, and that was a jazz band from Perth. From then, and I think it went from there. So the song reviews, I don't even think I planned out to do the song reviews. I think that just kind of sprung on because I love listening to music. So I thought that's because and when I'm listening to music, I kind of create scenarios in my head of how that would play out. So I thought, put pen to paper and see how it turns out, and that it turned out quite well. And then the one that really got me interested was the one I did with Mick and Phil, and that's a music duo from Airdrie. That I don't know what happened there, because their type of music I don't listen to on the daily. It is in my playlist, but it's not the one that I would go to and pick straight away. But something about that song, it was called The Key, something about that, it really just, I think it was because I was knitting through every single verse and every single sentence. I was really reading into the lyrics. So I think I spent a lot of time on it. But once it came after that, I was like, I don't want to stop, I want to continue that. So then I tried, and then my writer's block kicked in, and I didn't write anything for a good few months, like a good few months. And that at that point, I was blind, like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I wanted to continue with Blaksmith, because at that point it was Blaksmith Music Blog, and I was feeling quite blocked as a creative as well. My confidence was way down. I was like, I don't know if I want to continue this, like, at all. I could go into modelling, or I could continue the music and music business, but I was so confused. I didn't know what to do. And then I think it took maybe two months or something I was writing things down as those 2 months passed, but I was taking my time as well to really consider if I wanted to continue with it. Something told me not to stop, and something told me to continue, so I did just that. And then I first wrote with the Melton Scott, and that was Where Are You Really From? So that was actually the first one that I wrote, and I sent that over, and I think that was over like 2 weeks or something, and within those 2 weeks, that's when I wrote Who Am I and What Is Blaksmith? Because it just inspired me to continue, because I felt like that was what I first wrote was such a small paragraph, and I still had more to say. And of course, that was quite a tough few weeks for especially the Black Lives Matter movement as well. So, and I felt like I had so much to say, but I couldn't put it down through song. I couldn't put it down like sort of poetically. I didn't know how to get it out. And I saw there was a lot of Black influencers from Glasgow, from London, from everywhere, putting up their story, their experiences, or even just their part, putting out something just to know that, you know, as a society, as a community, we are a collective, and we do have a heart, we do actually care about each other. So I thought, stop being scared and just write something. If it gets seen, it gets seen. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Because, you know, things, you post them, you can delete them, that's what happens. And I thought, just do it, and you never know the outcome, because my posts were at that point gaining. I think the highest views I had was about 60, and I think that was on the song review I did for The Reason, and that's another small band here from Airdrie, that I did a small interview with them, and then I also did a song review for them. So those are the highest views that I got. I did not think that the first post, you know, Who Am I and What Is Blacksmith, I didn't think it was going to gain up to 400 views like at all. So I'm quite glad in that sense that I did give up, and I did try. And of course, then you guys got in contact with me as well. So I hope that this is the start of something. And even if I do get writer's block again within the next few weeks, I've got a plan that I can at least try and push out there. That happens. So I'm always prepared, always prepared.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's part of it. You know, I mean, I think for any creative, it's strange because it can be it's a fickle thing, especially because I think your creativity, well, some people act in different ways. I mean, I know creatives who work best when they are having a hard time, you know, and it's almost
it inspires something.
Yeah, it's quite cathartic for them, you know. Whereas me, I prefer to work when I'm happy. Just things kind of come through. Do you know what I mean? If bad things are happening, I can't really concentrate properly.
Yeah,
you know.
No, I get that. When it comes to songwriting, I feel that when I first started songwriting, I think it was because, like, see, when you're a child and you want to get out your emotions, like, so you just start writing down everybody you hate and stuff. I think that was what was mostly where my love for writing came from, and then it's snowballed into starting to rhyme and everything like that. So when it comes to writing, that's... Guys, I've done it again. What were we talking about?
You know what? You know the beautiful thing about that one? I saw the exact moment where the lights just kind of went off.
It's a light bulb, isn't it? So this is literally beyond the day.
It was me who's talking. Shit.
So you can, and you're back in the room. You're like,
do you know what? See at this point throughout life, that's exactly. See, at this point throughout life, see when it happens and conversations throughout the day, I don't even stop to like be embarrassed. I'm just like, just tell me, what were we talking about? Let's get on with it, because it happens so much. So I do apologise, but
it's okay, not a problem.
I know it was about writing. I know we were at that point anyways.
We were talking about Christ, where were we talking
Writer's
about?
block, creativity.
Writer's block, yeah.
See, yeah.
Ironically,
okay, writing, that's it.
I've never had thinking block.
When it comes to writing about songs, I'm not appreciating this. You know, it's like right. So when it comes to writing songs, I feel that when it first started getting out all my emotions, that's where the angriness came out from. So at first, writing songs was inspired by being sad and being angry. Then as you grow older, see, I'm on a roll now that I know what I'm talking about. As you grow older, the creativity just flows, and I'm the same as you. Like when you're happy, when you know you're in a good place, I don't know. It's like all the blocks are just lifted, and you can just flow through it, and everything just come out. But yeah, I think sometimes it's good if you want a really good sad song, it's good to be in a sad mood to write it. But if you want a great song and a great outlook on your blog, if you want bright colours on your blog and great things throughout whatever you've written, definitely be in a good mood. It's a good start to your day.
Chris, I always thought you missed a trick by not writing a blog.
You're it. No, I don't think it's
The Daily Soldier.
Yeah. See, the thing, it's one of those like. So I'm coming from completely the other side of the spectrum from you guys, where I don't know, there was any sort of kind of creative thoughts or creative anything that I've had. I've always kind of, I think probably quite early on, I maybe second guess or double guess myself whenever I kind of start thinking of stuff, and then I just kind of went, nah, I'm not do that. And then naturally, I think as well, a lot of it came from when I was younger. I'd never had that kind of, oh my God, what am I going to do for work? I never had that issue. I was always going to go and join the forces. That was always my plan. So I was kind of like, so I never kind of had the whole thing where I was like, oh, I need to try and create something, or I need to try and think of a different way because, well, I'm doing this. This is my plan. I used to have one of my teachers asked me what I was going to do, and I said I'm joining the army, and he replied to me was, well, they need somebody to clean the toilets in the army too. I was like, oh, right, yeah.
That's lovely. That's incredibly supportive.
Yeah. He then went on to say, even the Navy needs somebody to plug a hole in the bottom of the ship. To which I replied, why is a ship going out with a hole in the bottom?
That's quick thinking. I like that.
Quick thinking, but no, yeah, I've not kind of ever been that kind of way involved. So I'm kind of more very much process driven, which is probably why me and Greg actually work quite well, because he gets all crazy basket of cats, and I just pull him back down. Just go this way.
Yeah. I'm burning incense and talking about spirituality and all that. And Chris is like, right,
see, that's me. That is me.
Yeah.
I'm into spirituality. I love that.
Yeah. Chris is just right, you get your shoes on and let's get out the door.
Things done.
Yeah.
A to D.
So
I find that scary, but that's okay.
I find it scary. See when he phones you at 8 o'clock in the morning going, you up yet? The day's half done.
8 o'clock in the morning?
He's an unsociable man.
It starts at 5.
The day starts at 5.
Does?
How does your day?
I wish.
Just 100% starts at 5.
It's meant to, I think. I wish I could do that, but I can't.
You're so much done, man.
I'm having too many important thoughts to get up at 5 o'clock.
It's true.
Beverley, you mentioned the Black Lives Matter thing, and obviously it's had such an impact. Mm-hmm. So, give us your take on it.
So. It's crazy because now all of the memories are coming up on Facebook and Instagram of the incidents that have happened 2 years prior to this. The exact same incidents, just different people, same area, same similar areas. So at the beginning, as a family, I think we were quite because racism as a whole, we tend to try not to speak about it because let's be honest, it's a downer. It puts a downer on the conversation. And I think if you already have a community where you feel safe and comfortable in, then why bring it up in conversation? Especially if they're already well educated on that situation, which all of our family are and all of our friends are. Mm-hmm. So at the beginning, we were like, us as a family, we haven't received anything bad racially, in the past few years, thankfully, nothing too bad. So I think in that sense, we just counted ourselves lucky, and we were like, just keep quiet, keep to ourselves, just in that sense, we need to keep safe. But then as the years go on and as I've got older as well, because I think at that point I felt like I was too young to know everything, to be able to speak on that, especially on social media, because it's so easy to share something where you could be completely wrong on all of the facts, and then you've got yourself into this big social media war 100%. Where you can't get yourself out of. So, and I think especially with racism, that's a very it's a big deal on social media if you're going to write something about it. So at that time, 4 or 5 years ago, did not feel comfortable enough expressing how I felt about it. As well, I didn't fully know I felt about it. I wasn't fully aware of how it actually impacted my life, how it still does impact my life, and how it's affected, you know, different outcomes, whether it be work, whether it be school, or whether it be friendships. You know, it does come to think of it, it has actually made a vast difference. And I was completely naive at that point, because when you're young and you grow up in a nice family, soft-knitted community, you think everything is fine, that's how the full world is, and then you grow up and then you become an adult and then you realise that's not how the world is. So I think when you become too comfortable, that can be dangerous. But then as you grow older and you find yourself understanding all of the points, feeling more comfortable to be able to speak on it, you know, without showing any aggression or hatred, just trying to speak on it as an educational subject. That's become quite important to me, especially with wanting to do Blaksmith as a whole, because I want to touch on in the near future discrimination as a whole within the creative industry. So I think it would be, if I want to delve into that in the future, I need to have some sort of knowledge of what I want to do now. So seeing all the posts on Black Lives Matter from all the, whether it be close family members or friends, or whether it be influencers from here or from abroad, from anywhere, it sparks something, because you read them and you read them and you read them. Some are really sad, some are enlightening, some are educational, some are quite horrific to read, and maybe there's some pictures as well. Some you really don't want to open. So I think it was important to have something out there that people can read and not, I'm trying to put this lightly, not get too upset of the whole situation, to be able to look to see someone's perspective and just touch on it lightly, and just to maybe when people read my blog they thought, okay, because I didn't want to go too deep into experiencing racism. I didn't want to go into really a lot of details, because at this point I think, what's the point? Like, why talk about the past in that sense? Why not talk about something we can actually move forward from? We can talk about what it's done, how it's impacted, but we can also move forward from that. What are we going to do in schools? Is there going to be, a subject for that? Are they going to learn about it? So I think it's important to at least think about these things. If you want to talk about it with your friends, that's great. If you want to go ahead with it and try and make something bigger of it, then that's even better. But as if you want to talk about it just so your voice is heard, then that's okay as well, because some people are scared to talk about it because they think, if I say this, people are going to attack me, because you might just be scared, you don't want to say anything at all. So I think when you see other people maybe in a similar position who might be as anxious as you, but when you see other people step up and say something, even if it's something very, very small, and it doesn't delve too much into the bad, horrific sides to racism as a whole, then you feel inspired, and you see the good side to it, you see the positive side, and how we can move on from the positive side to Black Lives Matter, by the way, not racism. So
I gathered that.
That would have been, but I just had to clarify. Just in case, guys.
Well, this is taking a turn. You turned on it. Whoa.
We'll just end the podcast here.
But no, that's why I think Black Lives Matter. I think it's good that now more people are getting involved, but they're not. But it's becoming more than just showing the bad side to it. People are building communities, people are building safe spaces online where people can talk about it, or more people are coming together, even if it's chats where it's some on Facebook. I think in Glasgow specifically they've got that, is it Gals Pal? So there's pages like that, and lots of girls are just added in, and they give each other hints and tips and things like that. But there's from that, in comparison to that, there's also Black Lives Matter pages and these conversational pages where you can actually find people where you can communicate with and might be in the same position with you, someone that might just want a friend who's feeling lonely, who feel like they're feeling lost throughout all of it. So I think with Black Lives Matter, I think it has now started to take a different stance. It started to move forward, with progression of trying to change how community perceives what's going on, and how we can perceive some communities. And I think just now I hope to do more with Black Lives Matter, but we'll see. Again, I think my first blog was a big step, a big step for me to write something like that. And again, I didn't. I'm very, very thankful because I didn't receive any negative feedback. Like, there was nothing at all. There was no one, kind of saying all your points are wrong. You should have written this. And the same with the Milton Scott as well. That one I was quite scared to upload because that one I think was more straight to the point. So of course you're going to be scared because there might be some backlash, and that might happen in the near future. But I'm really thankful that for now, from being my first blog about that sort of conversation, I'm so thankful that it only had, people only saw the good perspective to it. Well, I hope that's how people saw it.
I think the thing with Black Lives Matter, I think a big part of it should be just educating people.
Yeah,
Because, it's one of these things that you said earlier on that people are scared to talk about it and stuff like that. But I kind of think if there is an open conversation about these issues, then I think people will be kind of more willing to enter into a discussion about these things. Yeah, because I mean, like you said earlier on, it is a hot topic, and people are definitely scared to voice an opinion, but also ask a question. Because if you ask a question, and you could potentially, people are going to be like, "Oh, you should know that." Like that's you're just living in a bubble. There's like, do you know what I mean? So I think it's. You're right in saying like creating a safe space where people can go, I don't understand what the problem, what are these problems? You should. That's what I think. I think that should be across the board. It should be education.
It should be.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's more. You need to it's more about more talk. Black Lives Matter now has kind of moved from talking about incidents to talking about the issues. I mean, moving away from the specific incidents and actually discussing the issues behind it. And like you say, a lot of people are quite scared to kind of ask questions. And I think it's one of those things that we used to have this saying whenever you teach lessons when I was training recruits, and it was the only stupid question is one that's not asked. Now,
very true. Yeah.
But the thing, I mean, in regards to this, great. But when I was working, I used to get so. You get loads of stupid, we go down a completely different rabbit hole. But yeah, you're right. It's 100%. You need to. I've done it now.
It does.
What was I talking about?
What is happening with you two?
What's happening to me, man?
You two are dropping the ball.
I think it's like my spell. I might just give that off to people. Once people are with me, they might just forget stuff.
Speakers blocked by proxy.
So we were Christopher, we were talking about education, and then you started saying about the daft questions are the ones that people don't ask or something.
Yeah, I don't think I had anything else to add.
That's all right. That's okay.
I think I had played my cards.
Played
my ace card.
But it's true. It should be spoke about more. And I think what some people don't know about me is that I am, mixed race. I am Scottish and Ugandan, and growing up here in Scotland, I didn't. I was taught a lot about the Scottish heritage, but once it came to the Ugandan heritage, I knew small things about my mum's culture, but I didn't know everything as a whole. I didn't know Ugandan history. In school, there's only the history that they teach you, I think, has very certain elements to it. There's a lot of things that I learned about history throughout the world. After I left school, in school we studied things completely different topics. So I think it does need to be spoke a bit more. And I think in my sense as well, I was scared to ask questions about my Ugandan heritage because I felt ashamed in a way, because I was like, you should know that. If you know so much about your Scottish side, why do you not know so much about your Ugandan side? And I think in terms of my mum, she did tell us as much as she could, but with my mum, she moved here with 4 children by herself. So she left Uganda. So I think in some cases it's hard for her to discuss things fully. Of course, her family's still there. She talks to her when she can. But I think especially growing up in her time as well, she doesn't have the same childhood stories that I do growing up.
Because
scuffing my heels.
Uganda's had quite the history.
Yeah, exactly.
You talk about Idi Amin and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that was things I didn't learn, I think, until maybe I'd heard those names I'd heard small bits of the stories, but I didn't fully understand until maybe about 19, and now I'm still learning the stories as it goes on. But I think it was slightly hard maybe it wasn't slightly hard and I was just tiptoeing around for no reason, and I should have been more brave to ask these questions, but again I felt like I should have known these things. So I think in that sense that's why it was also a big step for me to write a blog like that, because I think, and in Black Lives Matter as well, I feel like I didn't have a stance to talk about because I didn't know where I stood. Was I Ugandan? Was I Scottish? Can I talk on this? Can I talk about it? If I've experienced racism, yes, but do I have enough knowledge of my Ugandan heritage, of my mum's history as well, to be able to, get out all the facts, all the histories, get out all the dates and everything? I still don't, but I'm still learning. So I think, yes, I was very scared to ask questions. Because I was embarrassed, because I felt like I should have known these things. And it is a touchy subject. Who do you ask? Do I ask my mum? Do I ask a Ugandan member of my family? Do I ask a Scottish member of my family? It's all these questions, but I think as time goes on, I've got 3 brothers and I've got an older sister, so I learn a lot from them. As they get older, they learn more, pass it down to me, and that's great in that sense. But I think it's important that they need to know that it's okay to ask questions. Maybe be very careful about the way you word questions, because even me, like I sometimes slip up and you say something, you don't realise that it might come across as a racist remark, but the way you've worded it is definitely a racist remark, and I can admit that I have made that mistake as well sometimes. So I think it goes along with how you know how to speak on it, how to approach it, and what things to say. And that's when you really need to know your history as well, to know if what things you're saying really match up with the point you're trying to make. So
do you know, it's funny you should mention that. Like, see that you're saying that you might not be, you're kind of unwittingly saying something that could be deemed as being racist. I think that's the way a lot of people feel.
Exactly.
The intent is not there, but it's how it's received,
100%.
And I think that's kind of, where people are kind of scared to make or to say what their opinion is again probably for that reason as well. And yes. I think it should be, rather than, it goes back to education, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? If everyone is given the information that is relevant, then you can and then we can all communicate freely, because right now what I believe is there is a whole, like, people who are open to learning about it all and stuff like that are maybe still a bit standoffish, and it's not apathy, it's just hesitance because they don't want to offend anybody. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's completely easily understood, because nowadays we do live in a society that anything you do or say can be and will be offensive to anybody and anything. So I think that's what scares people as well, because there is some things that you can ask that is completely fine to say, and how you phrase it is completely fine, but there will still be that person that's out there that's going to pick at it, that's going to say, you're being racist, you're trying this, you're being homophobic as well, things like this. They're going to pick at it, they're going to try and say something. So I think that's why it's important that, to have that education to be able to really say, well, no, I'm going to make my stand, what I'm saying is right, you can say what you want, but I do know where I'm coming from, and I do have the points to back that up. But I think now, in schools and colleges and universities are okay, because maybe they'll have a better understanding. But schools, especially primary schools, children at younger ages are getting smarter. They're knowing what's going on, what's going around. So I think it would be a brilliant idea if schools could put something like that into place, because my nieces and nephews, they're mixed race, but their skin tone is white, but their dad is mixed race like me, and their mum is white as well. To them, that's completely normal. They ask us questions all the time. They're like, how is your skin darker than our skin? Like, I want to be your colour, how can I get your colour? Or can we go back to Africa? They're so intrigued in it, and what they're saying isn't racist, because one, they're children, two, they're curious, and you just need, that's education, you just need to let them know. But I think when it comes to primary school, because the girls, they now have curly afro hair, so they have a worry, it already slightly has started, but I have a worry that they might start getting bullied a little bit more for that. Their hair is beautiful, it's absolutely gorgeous, but they're going to get picked on anyways, and they already know they're sort of different, and well, not them necessarily, but they know that us as a family, we are quite unique. So, and I think they're really interested in it. And the oldest, Dylan, he's turned 8 now, and he's quite well educated on it as well. And I would love to see the boys in his class and his age have that same understanding, to be able to, because I think when he first went up to primary school and the other kids came out and they saw that this white boy was being picked up by this black man, they were like, they didn't understand. And that this is children that who are, 4 years old, 4 or 5 years old, and they're not going to understand, and that's completely fine. But that's where education comes into play, because they can then grow older and see that as completely normal, where it doesn't need an explanation. Anybody can pick anybody up, because anybody can be family. Doesn't matter what the skin tone is. Or they could go, the opposite direction, and maybe start seeing issues with it. So I think that's why it's important to have that education built up from a young age, because some children already have families, like my nieces and nephews, who already have that sort of exotic background, so they're inclined and they're interested, and you never know, that might actually expand on another level for them, because now my nieces and nephews are really interested. They want to travel to Africa, they then want to travel more and more around the world, so it'll make them more creative, it'll make them more driven, more motivated, more curious about the world. They'll want to know more and more as they grow older. If they want to learn languages, go on, like do so. Like, I think it's important to have these put in place at a very young age, just to sort of hammer it in.
Definitely.
You mentioned, sorry, 2 seconds, Chris. You mentioned about your nieces and nephews wanting to go to Africa and all that. Have you had the opportunity to go to Uganda?
We went back in 2011, and what an experience! It was honestly amazing. My mother is originally from the village Arua. The village Arua, and then in the city we were from Kampala. So that's where I was born. I was born in Kampala. And I was only in Uganda for 1 year when I was a baby. Then we moved over here. But I can imagine, even before I was born, they were travelling back and forth a lot from Kampala and Arua. The difference is crazy, but both places it's honestly spectacular. It's so good. When you go, it's like the scenes is Lion King, but in real life, for real. It's got the horizons, it's got the water, it's got the hippos, it's got everything. It's so good. So being there, when I went back in 2011, because that was the first time I had ever went back, and I was 12 years old, and as soon as I stepped off the plane, it felt like I was home. You could feel the jet plane was the jet fuel. Sorry, the smell of the jet fuel was something I actually remembered from a child. That was a smell, a very particular smell that I could not put my finger on, because when you're here in Airdrie, you're not going to smell that at all. So it was like you're not going to smell that. So it was
some guy in the estate with a jet plane.
You get me?
Just
so
building a bonfire.
At some point, I wish that would be good. But so it was at some points, like maybe if we were like driving to and from or past the airport or something, I might get like a small whiff of a smell like that, and I'm like, where is that from? Like I just couldn't click it. And then when I stepped off the plane, it rushed back to you. It was crazy. And I think it brought back my love, because I've always loved nature. My auntie, she stays up in Stirling, so we go in Stirling. The countryside is absolutely beautiful there, and I've always loved to be in touch with nature. Something sparked that in me as well. And then once I went back to Africa, I just felt like this is the nature that I feel like that's where that grew from. And I think if we took the 3 kids there as well, even if they're at a young age just now, or even if it's well in the future once they're older, I feel like they will as well have that same connection, that same spark, and that same interest, because they've seen pictures, and even on the small globe as well, they know what Africa looks like. They'll point it out and they'll be like I want to go here. They're so intrigued in it. Once they go, they're going to be very surprised, because I think in their head they think it's different to obviously what we've told them. So they'll be surprised once they actually go. But I think in general, I think going to places like Africa, like throughout Africa, especially comparing it from Kampala to Arua, it's a life-changing experience. Like, it really opens your eyes up. It shows you that even people who aren't as fortunate as you, like financially, they still have so much more fun than you have on the daily. Children running about with if they're running about in a Rua, they'll have their clothes on, but they won't have, a a brand new pair of Nike Adidas shoes on their feet. They might be bare feet, but they're the happiest children. They'll sing and they'll sing together, they'll dance together, they'll create that happy environment. It doesn't matter that they don't like have anything. They're going to create that community, and I think it's important for people to see that side, because it opens up your eyes to realise that you don't actually need to be materialistic. I'll put my hand up and say that I'm quite a materialistic person, and it puts you to shame sometimes, because you remember like where you're actually from. Some people in those areas, they don't have that benefit, so we are really lucky in that sense. But I think so when you're materialistic, it's hard to go to these areas and come home and still be the same and still think that way, still think, oh, I need to get a phone upgrade now, or I need to go get that top shop, that top shop order. You'll come home, you will think differently. You'll start thinking more about the water you're pouring out, the food wastage as well. That's one thing my mum has always taught us from children. There is no waste in this house is allowed. And that's because back home, some children don't have that privilege, which I completely understand. We still obviously waste. Sometimes we are guilty of that, but it's the thought that counts. So it's just people start seeing that there's different ways to life, and it's not just the images that you see on TV. It's more fun than that. Like it's honestly such a beautiful place. Everyone should visit it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, do you know what's funny? I can't remember who was talking to this. I've been to, I've kind of been to all the continents bar Africa. And Antarctica, but there's nothing going on down there.
Do you know, Africa's the only continent I've been to, so
there we go.
We should switch around.
What are you going to say,
well,
Christopher?
And Europe, but all right.
Sorry.
Well done, Christopher.
I love your part,
Thank you. Process driven. Sorry.
But it's always somewhere that I have always wanted to go. But you're right, it is portrayed in a certain way, and I think especially when you watch adverts on the television for like UNICEF and all that, you're like, what, man? But I know people who have been. And they said the same as you. It is like beautiful, but it is meant to be. Do you know the only thing that scares me, man? See, anywhere where stuff can just rapid kill you, like. That's why I hated Australia, man. Spiders. Like, go for a swim, sharks. You're having a lie on the beach, snakes.
Something is always everywhere you are. No, that's true. I remember when we travelled to Arua, my big cousin, she had a hotel there. They managed a hotel there, and we were in the garden, and there was this beautiful mango tree. We've never saw an actual mango tree in real life. It was the perfectly shaped mangoes with the nice lovely leaves on them. It was beautiful, and obviously us being so naive and thinking everything is beautiful and nothing has a dark side to it, we walked over and we're picking at them and everything, and then our other cousin ran over and shouted, please do not do that, because there's spiders on those trees. And of course, like, the spiders would be hidden, but as you would move things about, they're going to come out, and just as we moved our hand away, that's when one of the spiders crawled down. Now keep in mind, the mangoes would be maybe about this size, just a wee bit bigger. The spider was maybe about this size. It had the it looked like a sort of a black widow sort of body. I don't think it was a black widow, but it had a sort of body like that, with that sort of the black spiky legs. It was petrifying, and I think they did bite. Maybe they weren't very enough exactly. Nope. And if we didn't take our hand away, like, we probably would have touched that.
Nope.
So it's scary, definitely. But I think it's also interesting because here we don't have that. We've just got the pigeons. Like, you walk down Glasgow and the pigeons are the only thing.
We've just got the pigeons. I love that.
The pigeons are the only thing that you really need to look out for. Like,
seagulls.
Seagulls. Spiders and
just this wee neddy pigeon with half a leg.
Come on, you dick.
Geez, your chips.
But seagulls as well. No, they are bad. But I think it's crazy knowing that here. Some people are really, because you can walk out. Of course, the seagulls are big, so when you walk out, you're going to duck. But that's honestly the only thing we really have to worry about, is these birds ducking down, maybe stealing our food. But they are completely opposite. But they know how to handle it. When we were also, like, there was times when maybe we'd see a bunch of insects, and we'd see a really, really colourful grasshopper. We've never saw that before, so of course we're going to try and touch it. And then our little cousin would run over, and our little cousins, the little ones, were ages between maybe six and 8. And at this point, I was 12. My sister was maybe 16. My brother was 18, I think. And so we're well older than them, about to touch this really colourful bug. They're running over to us, being like, "Don't touch that because that's poisonous. You touch that, bad things will happen." So I think it's crazy because they have to know about their whereabouts at such a young age. Of course, it's life or death for them. But with us, like I said, it's just ducking.
Chris, tell us the story. So basically, the most harrowing thing that Chris ever told me about going to war in Afghanistan. He's talking about folk shooting at them and all that. Easy, Ozzy. Tell her about the camel spiders.
Yeah, man, these things are absolutely hideous. I mean, they're called camel spiders, but they're not actually spiders because they've only got 5 legs, right?
5 legs?
Yeah, it's only 5 legs. It's just
how does that even?
I don't, man. Yeah,
just going in a circle.
But no. So these things, basically, you wouldn't, when they bite you, you wouldn't actually feel them bite you. So basically, like, there's got like a kind of an anaesthetic in their fangs, and their whole thing is to try. Are they poisonous? Yeah, I mean they'll do you a bit of damage.
Do you a bit of damage?
But what they do is they try and like burrow into you to like lay their eggs. So they want to find somewhere like kind of warm and dark to lay their eggs. So I mean, like there was a story of a guy who'd come back from Afghanistan to Germany, and one was in his Bergen, so one was in his bag, and got out and killed a golden retriever. It's massive. Like,
see, it's absolutely heartbreaking because you're laughing, guys.
But no, like. Like, that's a big dog, man. You mean? Like,
that's a big dog, exactly.
That's a big dog.
How big was the spider? Was it big?
No, so, like about the size of your hand. So,
oh my god.
So I've actually come up close and personal with one of them. I was sat in. The job I'd done at the time was on a radio desk. So I was on the kind of up in a kind of operations room on the radio. And the way we had the building set up, it was basically like a kind of sheet of wood and then the actual kind of wall, the kind of blast walls to stop stuff kind of coming in. So there was obviously a bit of space between, and that was kind of where all sorts of creepy crawlies lived. And I just remember being sat on the, so I was sat, I had like a computer in front of me, like I've got right now, and I had the radio there, so I was kind of answering stuff to and from, typing bits and pieces up. And then out of the corner of my eye, I just seen this thing, like just crawl over, and I'm not even, like literally his body was as big as my hand, like that.
No.
And the legs kind of came out to about like huge, like the biggest, like honestly, like bigger than my face. And I've got a substantial face, like honestly, it was horrendous, and I let out the girliest scream you've ever heard, and you're like, woo! and ran. Ran outside.
That's oh my goodness,
hideous. No, I was like, no, kill it.
Did you see it again? Did you go back to see what
no,
it was?
I didn't go back in there.
What was the thing?
That's someone else's problem.
Chris, what was the thing you told?
Jump.
They jump.
They can jump like 6 foot. Jump up to like 6 foot.
No, you're right to stay out of there. You were right.
Yeah, no,
what was the story? What was the story you told me about the guys who had bought a thing in a jar?
Yes, whoa. that was it. That was us. Yeah. So basically, we had. I was out on a patrol. I was driving a wagon, and there was 3 of us. The vehicle behind the last vehicle, there was this little Afghani kid, and he had this little jar, and he was like holding this jar up at us as we drove past. And one of the lads went, "Hold up, I'm going to buy this jar off this kid." I hadn't really seen him. I was like, okay, fine. So we stopped, and they gave this kid $5. Little kid had $5 US. Ran away, like, buzzing. He's been given $5. We got this jar, and we're all looking at this spider. Like, there was this weird spider.
Was it alive?
Oh yeah, it was alive. We're like, I wonder what it is. We're like, well, there was a load of interpreters when we got back into camp. We were just round the corner from us. But we'll go in and ask the interpreters and see what they've got to say. So we went round the corner and we're like, "Yeah, lads, what's this?" And to a man, each of them went like dived away from us. They're like, get that thing. That thing bites you, you're dead within 2 hours. And we're like, oh no.
And you're just carrying it in a wee truck. Oh,
Just carrying it about, like, oh no, we've brought it onto camp. What are we doing?
you actually brought it, like,
Yeah.
oh, God.
Paid money for it and brought it inside camp. Like, what's wrong with us, man? You know what I mean?
That's the perks of being a tourist, but you can make these mistakes. Now, when you would go back to that place, you know definitely not to buy. Like,
I would just walk
Yeah.
about in a big kind of netted suit that was kind of maybe about a foot wider than I am on either side, just to be safe. Like,
Just to be
it's
protected,
blood. Do you know what it is,
yes.
man? I'm alright with, like, see the big cats and all that. I'm cool with it. I'm not.
Things you can see.
Things you could see. Snakes and all that.
Believe me, I could see this thing. This thing was big. I saw it.
It's a 5 o'clock shadow.
I got a personality. I saw it.
What a singing voice. Aye, it's things that just move. You can't tell. You don't know. Do you know what I hate about spiders? They always look like they're up to something.
Angry.
Exactly.
They just
That's
it's just
true.
like that. And then you look at them
And that they tend to do something,
and,
especially if you look away.
and you go, but that's right. And then you look away and they go, right, he's not looking. I hate that.
They just fly away.
And then you look again and it goes,
No, that's pretty accurate. It is.
"Oh, bastards.
I tell you what, I did not think this conversation was going to go this way. I was doing
No.
spider impressions.
I
Right?
was literally just thinking this was like been such a fun podcast, like for my first one especially. I was so nervous, and now this is how the conversation's planned out.
It's
Talk
okay.
about how much Greg hates
Essentially,
spiders.
what we are is a couple of idiots just trying to expand our mind.
That's it, Joe. And that's the whole thing we
You
were
have to
talking
start
about.
from somewhere.
Well, exactly. that's like the biggest put down I've ever had. Got to start somewhere,
It's like-
Greg.
That's like somebody verbally patting me on the head. Well done, son.
Do you know, I was trying to be really sincere. You're shaming me.
No.
No, but Joe, it's funny you should mention. So the whole thing with the podcast was like we started it off, and I was presenting myself at the start. Well, no, tell I was presenting it with my friend, but he wasn't very good at presenting. So I was doing it a lot myself, and part of the motivation for doing it was just I liked learning things. Yeah, and getting you see the things that I've found out. Do you know? Just I mean, the whole idea with it, because when we started, people were like, "Well, what's the podcast about?" And I was like, "Well, it's not really about anything. It's just
stuff.
you want to sit and listen to somebody who has a different perspective, who's had different life experiences, and just draw from their experiences and educate yourself." And then
Exactly.
take the better
Yeah.
version of you into the world and dazzle folk. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's and
No, but I'm glad I have.
so spiders aside,
Yes.
because I thought it was funny when you were talking to spiders. I was checking the roof in my room. I'm like,
See, when you're having a conversation about spiders, that's when they do seem to creep up. So just be good, guys.
yeah,
Just
it's
be
like aye,
Be vigilant, everyone. Stay safe.
the wee bastards. Anyway,
I know.
Yeah.
yeah. So let's get back onto what we were talking about. So obviously, you kind of touched on the plan for the, but tell us about what's the future. What does the future hold for Blaksmith Creatives?
Well, it's quite a big future,
Okay.
quite a hopeful future. I'm going to say that.
Strap
I think
in.
definitely as the plan goes on, I'm going to 110% change it and add things in, or focus it more on one area, or because I'm actually quite an indecisive person, but it's because I'm also quite a perfectionist. So nothing's ever fully ready. I always need to change it. But I think with something like this, you need to push something out there. But I think for now, definitely the next steps is to start building a music network. So if that means, first of all, getting myself maybe into studios, liaising with more producers and other songwriters and sending over more demos and more voice notes, things like that, then that's what I'll do just now. That's where I'll start. But because I want to then build up a music network, like I said, some producers, some songwriters, some composers, people who maybe they want to just write the songs, they don't want to perform them. Some people, like to perform songs maybe if they're not written them, they just have that talent to sing. So if that's a sense, I'd love to build up a network for that. I think that's going to be the next steps. but that will consume the near future, I think, mainly. I think the Blaksmith brand as well as a whole, I'd like to expand on that. Maybe getting some more photo shoots involved. I've put together a photo shoot plan, which is going to be a sort of just an introduction into what I want to bring to Blaksmith as my own independent artist. So I think I'll do into sort of 3 sections to show and me. I think it's just to show me as a creative, as an artist, and as a model, my interests, my different sides, my different personalities. That's that's what the photo shoot is going to be about, and that's going to be the first one. And then hopefully from there, maybe if we start then working with other artists and producers, get them in for some photo shoots. From there, maybe hopefully it will snowball. I think I was recently also in a music video with the Cutbit Kelvins. So that was released a few months ago. I think that was released just before March, and that was the first time I'd ever done something like that as well. I think definitely that night was so much fun because that was basically, the theme was a house party, and that was basically what it was just a big house party with cameras and having fun. It was a brilliant experience, but I know, of course, not every music video is going to be like that. So I'd like to get that experience, having different genres and different ways of planning out a music video, whether that be in the music video or planning the music video, or and that alone, I love to plan things. I love planning events. I'd love to put on a fashion show, a catwalk, or I'd love to put on an actual music event and bringing in artists and showcasing them. And if I'd look into that to do that in Glasgow and in Edinburgh just as a starting point, and hopefully again within the near future, within the next few years, that would hopefully expand to London possibly, but we'll see. But yeah, so I do have big hopes for Blaksmith Creatives just now. I'm glad that I changed it from Blaksmith Music Blog to Creatives, because I do feel that now I've given myself that freedom where I don't want to tie myself down, because sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I don't even want to sing today. I just want to, take some pictures. And sometimes you wake up and you're like, I'd never want to model again because I hate that industry. I'd only want to do music. And then sometimes you want to do everything. So for me, it definitely depends on my mood. But I think for Blaksmith, I want to open up all of these avenues. I want to really, really try it and push them. And I'll see what collectives, what creatives want to come and join me along the way. But hopefully within the next month or so, I'll have that sort of solid plan where I can start broadcasting and writing about and putting things up on my blog. But we'll see.
Right, well, I think it's nice to hear what the aspirations are for the future, and I think it's especially coming from someone so young. I think,
right?
Yeah, it's
people say that all the time.
Yeah, no, but it's really, and actually because I started in business when I was 22, so 10 years I've been in business for. And when I hear someone like you talking about it just at the beginning of their journey.
Yeah.
I love it because there's still there's an enthusiasm there, and it's when I was listening to you talking there, and I was just like, it's nice to hear. It really is.
Yeah.
But I think what we'll do is we'll call it a day there. But Beverley, thank you very, very, very much for coming on to talk to us. It has been extremely educational.
It's been a pleasure, guys. I've had so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
Not a problem at all. And
hopefully this will be the first of many.
Well, I was just about to say that. I was thinking when the next stage of your plan comes to fruition, I'd love to get you on.
And I promise, then these mind blanks won't happen as much. It'll run a wee bit.
I don't believe you. No,
that's good. I don't think I'm ever going to go out of that. It's okay.
Okay, cool. I'm going to sign off just now. So thank you for listening, folks, and please hit those like and subscribe buttons.